All righty, we gather today to acknowledge 30 years of the Great Cities Institute. But as we look back, we also look forward. We do not live in ordinary times. We are living through converging crises that strike at the very foundations of urban life. Concentrating wealth in the hands of a few with deepening disparities, increase in affordability issues for the average household, climate instability and catastrophes, forced displacement and housing insecurity, erosion of democratic trust and threats of rising authoritarianism, technological disruption reshaping work and belonging. And yet, in the midst of all of this, we are also seeing new forms of solidarity, creativity, and civic courage. In this landscape, institutions like the Great Cities Institute are not optional, they are essential. They are engines of public purpose. They are bridges between knowledge and action. And they are among the few places where we can gather evidence, imagination, and community to respond not to just what is, but to what ought to be. When the Great Cities Institute was founded in 1995, it was born out of a radical yet simple conviction that the urban university should serve its city, not from a distance, but as a partner. The 1990s were a moment of paradox. Chicago, like many cities, was experiencing both revitalization and disinvestment, both corporate expansion and widening inequality. UIC's leadership recognized that to be a great university, it had to embrace the idea of being in and of a great city. That's how the Great Cities Institute and the Great Cities Commitment was born. It wasn't just a slogan, it was a mission, a declaration that UIC's intellectual power should be used to confront urban challenges, to generate data and policy grounded in the lived realities of working people. The Great Cities Institute became the anchor of that vision, an incubator for research, community partnerships, and innovation. It would not simply study cities, it would help shape them. It would not only produce knowledge, it would co-produce it with the people most affected. For 3 decades, GCI has been a model for how universities can work in public, grounded in data and rigor, yet deeply embedded in community and civic life, focused on local challenges, yet connected to global questions, and always driven by equity, by the idea that cities should serve all who live in them. Across 30 years, the Great Cities Institute has built an extraordinary record, not only of research excellence, but of impact with integrity. We offer data that drives change. GCI's labor market and demographic analyses have become go-to resources for policymakers, journalists, and civic organizations. Its data on youth joblessness and regional inequality, for example, help shape public debates and workforce strategies across Chicago and Illinois. When the city faced critical questions about youth employment, manufacturing futures, and racial equity, GCI provided the evidence and the narrative clarity needed for informed policy. We provide community partnerships that model co-creation. From neighborhood revitalization to participatory planning, the Institute's collaborations with groups in North Lawndale, Pilsen, Humboldt Park, South Chicago, and beyond demonstrate that research gains meaning when it emerges from mutual trust. The UIC Neighborhoods Initiative and community data hubs are not just projects. They are democratic practices and spaces where communities' voices guide inquiry, not just respond to it. We provide scholars who bridge the university and the city. The Faculty Scholars and Fellows programs over the years have cultivated generations of researchers who integrate theory with practice, linking economics, sociology, architecture, public policy, and planning to the lived realities of Chicagoans. We contribute conversations that shape public discourse. The many programs and lecture series have become platforms for serious civic dialogue, bringing together leaders from government, nonprofits, philanthropy, and academia to wrestle with the pressing issues of housing, displacement, jobs, and justice. We provide a model of engaged scholarship recognized globally. GCI stands among the few university institutes nationwide that have sustained this dual commitment to academic rigor and public accountability. We are living in a moment when evidence is often dismissed, expertise is politicized, and trust in institutions has frayed. At the same time, communities are demanding not only to be heard, but to co-lead. And policymakers are dealing with complex, interlocking crises that do not fit exactly into agency silos and election cycles. Who then can bridge the gap between data and lived experience, between scholarship and street-level reality, between analyses and action? This is where the institutes like the Great Cities Institute play a historic role. They translate complexity into clarity, helping decision makers see the patterns beyond the noise. They hold space for collaboration, bringing together actors who rarely share the same table. They equip communities with tools, data, analysis, and narrative power to claim their right to shape policy. They train students, the next generation of urban thinkers, to see research as a form of social justice, not just a crunch of numbers. In short, institutes like GCI are the connective tissues of democracy. They embody the public mission of the urban university. They show what it means to be accountable, not only to funders or journals, but to people, to neighborhoods, workers, migrants, and young people whose futures are bound up with the health of our cities. 30 years have taught us profound lessons about the work of urban transformation. First, research must be reciprocal. Knowledge created with communities lasts longer and travels further than knowledge created about them. GCI's partnerships teach us that shared authorship is not a compromise, it is a commitment to justice. We have learned that data must tell human stories. Behind every chart or map is a person, a family, a neighborhood with memory and meaning. The challenge is to use data not as a weapon of abstraction, but as a language of empowerment. We have learned that cities are living systems, not laboratories. Our work must be adaptive, responsive to climate shocks, economic shifts, pandemics, and social movements. The Great Cities Institute has shown the agility needed to study what matters as it happens. We've also learned that equity must be the metric. The ultimate measure of success is not how much data we publish or how many grants that we win, but whether people's lives improve, whether opportunity expands, whether justice moves closer within reach. As we imagine the next 30 years, the question is not only what cities will look like, but what kind of institute will we need to help navigate them? We will need an institute that studies the future of work in an era of automation and AI, asking who is included and who must be included in the next economy. We need an institute that maps climate vulnerability, not just in abstract models, but in the lived realities of affected communities. We need an institute that supports immigrant and refugee communities as they reshape the cultural and economic life of our cities. We need an institute that confronts housing affordability and displacement with data, policy, and grassroots collaboration. I'm going to add, we also need an institute that helps promote affordable education. We need an institute that strengthens democratic capacity by helping communities participate meaningfully in governance. And we need an institute that builds regional solidarity, recognizing that the city's challenges and opportunities extend far beyond municipal borders. And most of all, we will need an institute that continues to believe that evidence, empathy, and engagement belong together, that the public university can still be a force for the common good. 30 years on, our work continues. Thank you.